In recent years, throughout the National Football League, second string running backs have risen to become popular and among the more notable players in the league. Gone are the days of bell cow backs such as Emmitt Smith for the Cowboys, Walter Payton for the Bears, Eric Dickerson for the Rams, so on and so forth. How did we get to this point? Well, I'm going to break it down.
Fasten your seatbelts for the realest Eagles and Sixers YouTuber! One who plays no clickbait and gets to the point! The myth, the legend, Nicky Steves! Come to my channel, you know the deal. Yo, boy, always keeps things real. I'm simply statue think they slate, dropping unrealistic mad 2K takes for the clip. Even though cats like that get views closer to the milli, never hear me preach, LeBron to Philly. Before you watch the Eagles all the way through the early 22, authentic talk, forget what others do. Come to my channel, you know the deal. Yo, boy, always keeps things real. The 24/7, 365 way. Sports content for the reals to fill the day.
We're in a position now where second string running backs are a popular commodity on the offensive side in the National Football League. And especially we've seen that trend over the past decades shift in that direction. Like I said in the intro, gone are the days where it was like Emmitt Smith, Eric Dickerson, Walter Payton. Those days are over. Jim Brown days are long gone. Days where the running back was the heart and soul of a team. You rarely see teams built around running backs nowadays. Most notable recent example was the Tennessee Titans tried to do so with Derrick Henry. But ultimately in the long haul, they parted ways with Derrick Henry. Now they're in a deep rebuild. Now he's a member of the Baltimore Ravens. But throughout the league now, we notice teams gearing more toward having a 1-2 punch at back. Second string running backs now are considered assets on the offensive side of the ball. How did we get to this point where you had your main running back as your asset to now a second string running back such as an A.J. Dillon or Tony Pollard during his run with the Dallas Cowboys were considered assets, just to name a few, along with plenty of others. Jared McKinnon for the Vikings. I mean, you can go on. Recently, you had Taysom Hill for the Saints behind Alvin Kamara was considered an asset as a second string back. Jalen Warren for the Steelers, David Montgomery for the Lions. All these guys are respectable running backs that have talent in their own rights that are considered respectable second string backs. Kareem Hunt, when he blew his chance as the starter with the off the field incident back in 2018, got cut by Kansas City the first go around, went to the Browns and was a good second string back behind Nick Chubb. We see that shift happening. And so the point is, there has been that drastic shift over the past decade now, especially 2019, 2020, 2021, 22, 23, 24, and continuing now with the Eagles signing A.J. Dillon, Vikings signing Jordan Mason. The point being is now we're at that point where second string backs have become popular. But how did we get to that point, and why have we seen the rise in second string running backs? Well, let's get into it. Couple main reasons. Number one, the shelf life for running backs is short. Let's go back about a decade ago, 2016. Let's take a look at some of the running backs who had some of the premier and respectable running backs during that era, during that season. You had Devontae Freeman for the Falcons, Marlon Mack, Carlos Hyde. You got some of those guys. Remember Jay Ajayi for the Dolphins. And look, here we are now in 2025. Those are all names of running backs who have pretty much fallen off the face of the earth. I don't, are any of those guys even still in the league anymore? I mean, I think the one that lasted the longest out of all of them was Carlos Hyde, where he saw a reduced role as a backup back, but those guys, I don't even think any of those guys are in the NFL anymore. If so, they barely get any playing time. So the point being is the shelf life for running backs is short. And it's been this way for a while. I mean, you've seen like the Pittsburgh Steelers. post Jerome Bettis, have a lot of short-term running backs. Remember Fast Willie Parker? Remember him? By 2010, Rashad Mendenhall was their go-to back. By 2014, Le'Veon Bell was the star back. And then a few years later, when Le'Veon held out, James Conner was supposed to be the star back. Then it was supposed to be Najee Harris. Now Najee Harris is no longer on the Steelers. And you saw the emergence of Jaylen Warren as a number 2 back in that Steelers system in the 2024 season. So the point is, Steelers are one great example of the running back shelf life isn't long. You see them. Look at the Denver Broncos actually in the 2000s. Post Terrell Davis, it was Clinton Portis, Tatum Bell, Reuben Drones. Then you eventually had Willis McGahee for a bit. Then you had Monty Ball. Then it was the next runner up, this guy, Melvin Gordon, all the way to Javonte Williams, who just signed with the Cowboys. I mean, Broncos have been through a ton of running backs. Post Terrell Davis, from Clinton Portis all the way down to Javonte Williams, who just signed with the Cowboys, mind you. And you see guys like DeMarco Murray, remember? He looked like he was going to have a spark for a minute there with the Cowboys. Then he went to the Eagles. He kind of had a fall off. He went back to the Titans. Had a little bit of a better go in 2016 with the Titans than he did with the Eagles in 2015. Because Tennessee was a little bit more suited to his strengths. But then by 2018, fell off the face of the football world. So the point is, these running backs, shelf life don't last long. And teams go through running backs left and right. So the point being is, teams don't want to invest in a number 1 back when they feel like they're going to be constantly switching backs every couple of years. The Chicago Bears have done that a lot. Remember Anthony Thomas, the A-Train? For a minute. Then it was Thomas Jones. Then it was Matt Forte. And then it looked like it was going to be Jordan Howard for a minute. But he was out. Then Tariq Cohen looked like he was going to be the guy for a minute. And then it just is the next man up. Like, the point is, teams that, like the Chicago Bears, you can see is another example of a team that constantly switches running backs. Just like the Steelers. So that's one of the reasons why teams don't want to invest in a number 1 back when they feel like they're only going to get a couple years of production before they move on to the next guy. So that's one reason right there. Short-term shelf life for running backs. Another reason why is the rise of the dual threat quarterbacks like the Lamar Jacksons, Jalen Hurts, Josh Allen even. And even Patrick Mahomes, who's more known as a passer, has aspects of that dual threat incorporated into his game. Justin Fields, if he ever starts again, he's going to be, when he's with the Jets, maybe he'll get another opportunity. But you see, we're starting to get away from the traditional pocket passers, go more into the dual threat quarterbacks like Lamar Jackson. The point being is that with guys like Jackson, Hurts, and Allen, they make up the passing and the running game. So for NFL teams, they don't feel like they need to pay big money to a number 1 back. That's another reason. Another reason for the rise of second string backs is because they feel like if they have a number 1 and 2 backs split carries, it reduces the odds of the number 1 back getting injured or being ran into the ground from being overused. So that way they feel like they can get more out of their running backs, so they just have a 1-2 set. Like for the Cowboys, they got about 7 seasons out of Ezekiel Elliott? And they had Tony Pollard there as a number 2 back behind him. Alvin Kamara, the Saints, 2017 to 2024. That's pretty long for one running back. But you also had guys like Mark Ingram and Taysom Hill serve as number 2 backs behind Kamara during that time. Aaron Jones had A.J. Dillon. And now in Minnesota, he's going to get Jordan Mason, who just recently signed as that number 2 back behind him. So now now Saquon's even going to have A.J. Dillon with the Eagles as the number 2 back behind him. And to some degree, that can work. Like, you notice guys like Alvin Kamara, Zeke, lasted longer with their main team than the respective backs. Now, Ezekiel Elliott, now he's past his peak, but his main run as one of the Cowboys' lead back lasted longer than most backs, mainly because he had a reliable number 2 back behind him during his tenure. You also look at what Detroit Lions are doing. They have a good 1-2 duo right there. David Montgomery has turned out to be a good number 2 running back. And that's helped out there. That's helped Jamar Gibbs out. They feel like they can get more. That it reduces the odds of Jamar Gibbs getting injured, because running back is the 4th most injured position in the National Football League. So with that right there, you get a 1-2 duo at back. It reduces the odds of your number 1 back getting injured. And considering running backs don't get paid top money on the market, it also helps teams reduce the odds that they have to pay a running back top money if they just have 2 backs. Because they feel, I guess in part, it's like, okay, if we have 1-2 duo at back that can help us out, one running back won't get incentives to the point where we have to sign him to a big contract. So I think in some ways teams cheaping out on paying running backs too, which for the running backs, that's frustrating as hell for them. They put in all this work. They're risking their bodies. They got to go between blocking, running, being a receiver in the passing game. They got to pretty much put their bodies on the line every single offensive play, and they're not really getting paid the big bucks for it. So for the running backs, especially the number 1 backs, some of them might feel it's an insult, man. They might feel that the number 2 backs also in part being used to prevent them from getting a bigger contract down the line. And to some degree, I do feel that's another part of the reason why. Because they feel like they'll be less likely to have to pay a number 1 back if they have a number 2 back there. And if, God forbid, a number 1 back wants something on the market, well, they can always find another back, like the Packers. Aaron Jones seemed like they didn't need to pay Aaron Jones because they could just snag Joshua Jacobs. And Aaron Jones now went to the Vikings. And he's getting a new contract. So I feel like the main reasons why we've seen the rise of second string backs are, number 1, short-term shelf life for the running backs. Number 2, the rise of dual threat quarterbacks. And third, it reduces the odds of teams having to pay up at the running back position if they have 2 backs, feeling that 1 back won't stand out to the point where they have to pay them big bucks. So those are the main 3 reasons that we've seen the rise of second string backs. And that's all I got for this one right here. If you guys want to leave a comment, let me know any of your thoughts on anything I said, whether you agree with what I said, disagree with anything I said, want to add additional comments, more than welcome to in the comments. Also, if you want to show your support for the channel, make sure to drop a like and subscribe for more NFL and NBA related content if you're a fan of both. And with that being said, though, it's your boy Nicky Steez signing off. Have a great rest of your day. Catch you next time.